to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. So glad to have you here with me this morning. It is bright and early, and it is Friday. Can you believe it is Friday? I am so excited that it's Friday. Looks like we've already got Shantini in the chats. Good morning, peasants, and Thundering Oak. Good morning, all the way from Michigan. So glad you guys have joined us. Oh, what a great morning it is. I looked outside this morning, and obviously with the daylight savings time being in the northern latitudes up in the Pacific Northwest, some sun, bright and early. It looks gorgeous outside. Looks like it's going to be another beautiful day. Pray the Rosary Daily. It's Friday. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is very exciting. Doug Wyatt, so glad to have you here. Good morning, peasants. Glad you made it. You guys are the greatest. Really are. You make it all worth doing. And guess what? I got probably bad news. I don't know. Good news. Today's probably the last day that I'm going to be in the Rumble Creator Program. What are you going to do? We didn't even come close to 75 chatters and or a couple of the other bumped up metrics. But, we had a good run at it. So, as of tomorrow, we're legit still doing this out of the goodness of our heart. So much fun. All right, I know why you guys pile in bright and early in the morning, 6:30 a.m., Monday through Friday, Pacific Standard Time. You join us for the simultaneous sip. And all you need for that is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, a jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. And join me now, fill it with your favorite liquid, and join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip, and it starts right now.
Why are you gay?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You are gay. Why are you gay?
That's pretty funny. Why are you gay? On the advice of counsel, I respectfully disagree. That was a pretty funny meme going all over the place yesterday. I saw a bunch of stories where, the whole, I plead the fifth, my Fifth Amendment. I saw a whole bunch of videos where that was going around and people were doing that as kind of a funny meme. Okay, I got one other thing here. I got a bunch of stuff going on. I organized the show in a certain way, and now, okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so we got some big things to talk about today. So let's get started with a couple good news items. So first and foremost is this. Let me get this added to stage. All right, there we go. All right, perfect. All right, so Kevin Hassett. Final domestic demand was really a healthy 3.9%. So let's take a listen to Kevin Hassett. We had some good economic numbers yesterday.
We have initial claims for unemployment insurance. They're the lowest they've been since the 1960s. We have real income growth of about $3,000 per family since President Trump took office. And we've got this incredible investment boom because of artificial intelligence and other things. And so if you dig down deep into the numbers, one of the things you can see is that final domestic demand, which is sort of the amount of stuff that actually was purchased in the U.S., was up a really healthy 3.9% or about 4%. Mm-hmm. And the reason you got the 1.5 number is actually that we're importing so many machines right now to build new factories. The imports shot way up and took the growth rate down from you put the consumer data up. That plus strong investment usually gives you a 3 or 4% number. It was 1.5 because there were so many imports of capital goods. But imports of capital goods are a long run positive sign because those machines are going to get turned on. They're going to make more output and create more jobs.
This guy right here is kind of a straight shooter. He's just going to kind of say what he's going to say. Tomaste, good morning. Welcome. He's going to say, I think what are the legitimate numbers. But the thing I think that comes up on this show over and over and over again, and in the Biden administration, this was just brought into highlight, was these guys fake the numbers all the time. So even though it's, hey, we got great numbers, part of me is like, Can we really trust that? Here's another one, right? This is coming out of CNBC. We got jobless claims last month. So here's the jobless claims out of CNBC. Also, good news on a normal day.
Jobless claims, 197,000. That's once again under 200,000, which was expected. And last month's 187 becomes 188 as we continue to hover in numbers that really were the late 60s. 197, though, of course, does comp. We've had some numbers in that area. 197 would take us to the last week in April when it was 190. These are unbelievably contained numbers. And once again, I'm not sure how much info it gives us. Probably a lot of fraud taken out of these programs over the last year. Jobless claims.
That's it right there. Okay, so jobless claims. What are jobless claims? Hey, I'm going to apply for unemployment benefits. Who applies for unemployment benefits? Well, someone who just got laid off. So, and then there's time limits to it. Like in most states, you can get unemployment for like 2 years and then you don't get it. And there's all these caveats, and every state manages a little bit differently. But obviously, if you're an illegal immigrant, one of the first things you're going to do is, if you can, you're going to take advantage of that program. So when he goes, I don't really know what to think about these numbers, there's probably a lot of fraud taken out of it. Have you ever considered the fact that if you took out fraud and illegal aliens, unemployment would be a negative number? Like there would be 100% employment plus people working if you actually got rid of all the illegal immigration. So as they are, slowly but surely breaking records every month on deportations, it's taking people out of the system. Or if they just cut people off from the system, right, because they're taking them out because they're committing fraud, that would make sense too. So that's really good. Here's another thing as well, and this isn't necessarily great news. It's just kind of some news. So the situation with Todd Blanche has become a real problem. So obviously in the Senate, he's supposed to advance his nomination out of I think it's the Judiciary Committee that that's where the committee is, where they vote on it to then go to the Senate floor. So it's supposed to go to the Senate floor. It's been postponed. Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, no surprise there, are both objecting to Todd Blanche being appointed as Attorney General. What's really interesting about this, specifically with John Cornyn, when Merrick Garland was being confirmed, he gave a speech saying that Merrick Garland, he was voting to confirm Merrick Garland, even though he was a Democrat, blah, 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 because he was going to de-weaponize the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland did nothing but put his foot on the gas pedal, right? Now, Democrats who wanted him to weaponize government in the name of de-weaponization, right, felt like he didn't go hard enough on Donald Trump, that he postponed and delayed things. Obviously, Merrick Garland had his hand tied by things like, the Constitution and due process. But either way, right, he's kind of nobody's hero. But John Cornyn voted for him. Like, okay, well, you're your guy. Lindsey Graham used to talk about it, the gentleman's vote. I'm not going to stop you, so I'll vote for you that way, whatever. So the fact that Cornyn and Tillis all of a sudden are like, nope, we're not going to put one of Trump's people in. And not only that, someone who's been a deputy attorney general and someone who is the acting attorney general and has earned their stripes, it's kind of shocking that these guys are standing in the way of his nomination. So Trump posted a truth yesterday. I always want to say tweet. Trump posted a truth yesterday. John Cornyn never had a problem with the so-called funds, so that seems to be the sticking point. Todd Blanche was approving the fund, and that's why Trump fired him. Whatever. All right, so let's listen to Trump.
What I can say is Todd Blanche is outstanding, and I thought it was pretty routine because he's so good. You just wouldn't find a better person. So I don't know. Maybe John Cornyn's upset with me because I didn't endorse him. I don't know what it is, but I haven't heard that there's a problem. I heard he's going through quite nicely.
And do you think Senate Majority Leader challenge?
What I can say is Todd Blanche is outstanding.
So apparently yesterday they were supposed to meet. Who knows? They were supposed to meet, so who knows if he's going to get approved. Trump indicated yesterday as well on Truth Social that if Todd Blanche wasn't approved, he would simply sit on his nomination and wait until the new year, and hopefully we get a new Senate when Tillis and Cornyn are gone. So, I don't know. I just think that's one of those things where it's like, man, the Republicans that aren't getting on board with these nominations, they're just playing dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. Okay, on to a very, very serious topic. yesterday, something happened in the world that there's a lot of things that we have to be grateful for. One of the things we have to be grateful for is Elon Musk buying X and Elon Musk allowing videos to circulate freely. There's a price to be paid for that, right? Liberty is not cheap. Liberty requires a lot of personal responsibility. During the COVID era, any information that came out that was anti-narrative, right, anti-government sponsored and government approved narrative had a tendency to be censored. In fact, there's people listening right now that probably had their Facebook accounts suspended or got sent to Facebook prison or got their X accounts deleted, right? Lots of people did. I did. This entire podcast, the entire library got taken off of the Spotify platform. So absolutely, right? Absolutely, there's consequences to things you post when a regime that controls speech is in power. I'm sure some of the videos that came out yesterday in the coming weeks are going to be hard to find. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a psyop to try to cover it up. This is a tactic where you take the words that are in someone's post, you mirror the words, and you put some inert video or GIF or something dumb. And what that does is when someone goes to search, for example, Spanish border invasion, which is what we're going to be talking about, other stuff would come up and you wouldn't see these videos. There's a lot of different ways to kind of game the algorithm and game the system. So yesterday, while this was happening live, a lot of videos got out. And like I said, this is one of those things that if the governments, plural, whoever's kind of overseeing this and is responsible for this disaster that happened yesterday in Spain, if they had their whims, this would be censored. Okay. So this is a real look into something that was happening in the United States and has been happening. And it happened in a huge surge yesterday. So let me add this here. Let me figure out the best way to show this video. Is this the best way to do it? No, this is probably still the best way to do it. Okay. So we're going to play a couple of these here. And, like I said, this is some powerful stuff. So this is on the border of Spain and Morocco. There's a little Spanish island that you can basically make a water crossing from mainland Africa in Morocco up into Spain. Okay. So this was scenes coming out of the border yesterday. It's just as far as you can see. I mean, up and down the coast, almost exclusively male-aged, military-aged men are crossing this border. There's one. Here's another one. So this is a case of the American Tribune says, "Let this sequence be burned into your mind forever. This is what white liberal women will be doing in mass if the left ever wins power again in America in our lifetime. They will gleefully wave in the migrant swarm who will rape and behead them just to spite you." This is the term suicidal empathy doesn't sum this up. So this is the white liberal woman. And all day long yesterday, these migrants were streaming across this border into Spain. So here she is just waving them. Right, so this is suicidal empathy. She's just waving them in. So as the day goes on, this gets more and more dramatic. And I mean, this just continues. This is a minute solid of these migrants just crossing the border. So then it continues on. Here's another one here. So as the day goes on, these migrants come in. And early on in the day, the reporting was coming in that it was 1,500 people. Okay, now we're 5,000 people. As many as 10,000. Now this morning, as the numbers are more clear, we're seeing a pretty consistent number of 50,000 people crossed the border yesterday in a matter of hours. 50,000 people. Some experts say because of the way that they have to count, they're like, it could be as high as 100,000 people. So somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people. Here it's descended into this town in Spain, crossing this border. The town only has 83,000 people. Okay, so you've essentially outnumbered the people. So this was scenes from the street yesterday. Okay, these are the migrants on the street chasing Spaniards down the street. So this started to happen yesterday, and like I said, these are verified videos. Like this is what was going on. Here's another one. This one right here is very disturbing. So as the evening started to wear on, this invasion continued to keep coming across the border. And listen Listen to what these migrants are saying. All right, what they're yelling is Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. These are Moroccan, who knows what everything, I mean, who knows who's in the crowd, okay? But in large part, presumably, these are coming from North Africa, Moroccan. These are Arabs, okay? These are Muslim Arabs coming up through northern Morocco into southern Spain, crossing over. And as they're crossing, they're yelling Allah Akbar, which is praise to God. We crossed the border. That's the most benign interpretation you could give it there. What is probably, honestly, more of an accurate interpretation is this, because these migrants didn't come into the city and immediately try to seek asylum. What they did was they started to ransack the city. There's police and emergency vehicles, and the migrants are just openly stoning these vehicles as they drive through the street. Okay, so these vehicles. This goes on and on and on. Look at these masses of people, just masses of people, and they're terrorizing the local law enforcement. So then it continues to get worse. Okay, so not only do they continue to do that, so here's a different area of right? Everywhere any kind of emergency responders go, they're being attacked. Also, what started to happen was stores started to get looted and pillaged and broken into. So here's the migrants just breaking into a little local corner store. Completely unable to restrain these people. They've broken into the store. Everything's boarded up because of this migration for the day. They broke in, and the police are just completely powered. They're totally overwhelmed, totally outnumbered. You know, they're asking the people to leave. They're not even attempting to detain anybody. Okay, and then the Spanish authorities told people to stay in their homes and prepare to defend themselves, because there started to be a lot of, you know, assaults and stuff like that, and the migrants started to break into local homes, and this was caught on camera. This is just one video. I mean, it's like I'm not we play clips, but I'm not editing these clips. I'm not putting them into super clips or anything like this. But literally, I had hundreds and hundreds of videos to pick from. This honestly was very reminiscent of waking up in 2020 after big BLM riots, where we had videos coming out of LA and coming out of Dallas and coming out of Chicago and coming out of New York. And, you know, we just had tons of videos coming out. Well, this is real. I mean, a lot of those, you know, in kind of fairness and retrospect, some of those BLM videos, you know, you're filming one neighborhood. But what was going on here in Spain last night, it was all across this entire island. There were videos coming out. So here's more videos. They started to light things on fire, cars, homes, bridges. Deborah Debarian, Barvin, I can't. Deb Bravin, 88. This move was planned. Why less have it happen now? Yeah, that's honestly, as I was watching this, I started to continuously think of kind of an October 7th situation going on, because I mean, this got really rough. Look at this here. Okay, so like I said, as the night continued on, fires started to break out. It very much had an October 7th, you know, like this was a planned invasion. I've got videos of dump trucks being driven to the border, letting migrants off, and then the migrants jump off, and then they jump into the water and cross the border. Like, yes, clearly this was coordinated. So as the day progressed, there started to be some news reports. So let's catch up with Fox News on this and let them kind of fill in all the context. But I saw this yesterday, right, as this was happening, and my heart broke, because there's real world impact. Honestly, as I started seeing the break-ins, the home invasions, and I just thought, you know, in Berlin, this was a number of years ago, but in Berlin, when they started to have their mass Muslim migration, on a single New Year's evening, in their public park where they do basically their Times Square type celebration, you know, where the whole country kind of looks to one spot, and that's where the big party's at, right? In one single evening, there were over 1,000 women that were raped in the streets in one single evening by primarily Muslim immigrants, and there was almost no justice for any of it because of the volume of it. Okay, in one single evening, when I saw this, and I thought 50 to 100,000 people just descended on a town of 80,000 people. That's just stunning. And then you start to ask your question, where are these people coming from? Obviously, they're men. You have to remember, they're Muslim men, and a lot of these people are fleeing cultures. And I, you hate to kind of look at this as motive, but it is motive. And this even happened in the United States in Utah when the Mormons were practicing polygamy. There's an excess number of males, and the males have to go somewhere, right? In the Utah culture, they often made their way to California and kind of followed on with the gold rush to go seek bigger and better things because their marital prospects weren't very good in their hometown. Well, imagine being in a Muslim culture where polygamy is practiced in many of these cultures, and it's supported, and they want to practice it. When I was in prison and I would talk to the Muslims, it was like they really were looking forward to when they could finally practice it openly, right, and completely. And so it's part of their doctrine. They were not ashamed of it. There's no guile in these people. This is what they believe. That's what the Quran says, right? So anyways, you think about all these men coming out of these societies where one man can have more than one wife. That disrupts the balance of civilization. And there you see it streaming across the border. These are people that don't have marital prospects, and then topple that with no economic prospects. They're out the door. And they're military-age men. And who's to say they're not organized, right? Deborah says, anytime a country can't play with the agenda, they get something special like this. Well, the problem is Spain was playing along with the agenda. That's the thing. I mean, part of why this happened is probably because, and this is what Fox News is going to talk about it, there was a Supreme Court decision that said they had to grant amnesty, and there's basically just, you can't stop the migrants. They got the policies and the laws to the point to where there was no authority to stop this invasion. So next thing you know, it's not migrants, it's now an invading force. And what you're going to hear in the next couple clips I play is that Spain could not declare an emergency based on this invasion because it had been labeled migration, and migration is forbidden to be the cause of an emergency order. Fascinating how our suicidal empathy comes back and bites us in the butt.
Really wild video here. Chaos at the border of Spain's North African enclave in Morocco. This is a city called Ceuta. You're watching as thousands of migrants break through the fence and completely overwhelm the border police. Their video showing huge groups of people, mostly young military-age guys, cramming into inflatable tubes or arriving on shore another way, some of them wading in the water as they break through the gates to get to the other side. Sandra, this is reminiscent of kind of what we saw during the open border during the Biden administration through 2021, 2024, kind of similar to what we saw in Del Rio back in 2021. The socialist agenda, their platform literally says they want to abolish borders, abolish immigration enforcement, have complete freedom of movement. This is what it looks like in another country if they get what they want. Notice there is no resistance from the government whatsoever. These people are coming in without any obstruction. And if people don't know, Spain has a very left-wing government. Earlier this year, they did a big amnesty program for over 1 million illegal immigrants living in the country. They had 1.3 million illegal immigrants apply for that amnesty program between April and June. So that's what we call a pull factor, Sandra. They're looking for something like that. They know if they can just get their foot in the country, maybe someday that left-wing government will do another amnesty program. And you were just reading some of the wires. The locals want an emergency declaration. It sounds like
the ministry is saying no, they will not deploy military to the border.
Apparently, they don't think this is an I mean, look at this. This is a total free-for-all.
It does feel like we are looking at a few years ago when you were reporting at the border here in the United States. This is happening right now. This story is breaking right now, and you're not just talking about hundreds, thousands of migrants are pouring over the borders as we speak.
Yeah, and again, I mean, just look here. Do you see any women or children? I mean, most people would call these folks so-called asylum seekers. These are all young guys just flooding into the country and overwhelming what, if any, border there is. It looks like there's just kind of a small barbed wire fence or something like that. But you can see the Spanish government was caught completely off guard here, and you have thousands of these men. I mean, it literally looks like you often hear the word invasion, but it literally looks like one here. Look at that. I mean, you see the border fence there. They're all just going around it. And again,
the head of Spain's civil guard is calling this absolute chaos. In a brand new interview, he said, quote, "It's not possible to give precise numbers, but there are thousands of migrants crossing right now." He added that the border has totally collapsed. quote unquote.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. And for folks who don't know where this is a small Spanish city, autonomous in North Africa. It's actually in Morocco, but it does have Spanish autonomy. It's called Ceuta. So this isn't on the mainland of Spain. But these images, we've been looking at them on social media all morning. It's just stark to see that there is no resistance whatsoever. I mean, at least in Del Rio back in 2021, when those 20,000 Haitians were crossing the river, similar images to this, you had some border patrol there. You had Texas DPS there trying to stop them. Here in Spain, there is absolutely nothing stopping these folks from wading ashore and climbing the fences. And Sandra, look at that in the background. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of these men just flooding the country.
It's amazing. It's absolutely stunning. I just can't even fathom it. So there was more continued reporting. Let's keep on with the story here.
Finally reacting. In recent days, tens of thousands have streamed into the enclave of Ceuta, including women and children, overwhelming authorities, and yes, as many as 18 have been killed in the crush. Ceuta is one of 2 Spanish territories along the Moroccan coast in northern Africa, the closest to Europe, Spain the only European country with this African link. It's not clear exactly what's caused the latest stampede. There was that recent Spanish court ruling saying immigrants arriving by sea should not be turned back, a new Spanish program granting legal status to illegal immigrants. Spain, arguably the most migrant-open country in Europe. Madrid blames human traffickers for the hordes arriving, preying on people who say economic conditions in Morocco and Africa are driving the onslaught. Spain's neighbors aren't pleased. Italy's Prime Minister Meloni posting, quote, uncontrolled illegal immigration poses a threat to the security of Europe. One organization claiming a 60% increase in Europe's immigrant population in the last 15 years. The White House also weighing in, saying President Trump has long warned Europe what would happen if they continue to implement far-left globalist policies, including enabling mass migration. Spain and other countries who have adopted this destructive philosophy should immediately reverse course or face their own demise. Guys, Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez has just been speaking. He says the immigrants' arrival in Ceuta was a violation of Spanish territorial.
So they're starting to kind of, I guess there were some declarations later in the day that they promised they were going to deport these migrants who showed up today. It's like, yeah, good luck. I noticed most of them aren't coming with a whole lot of stuff. Like they don't have ID cards. Like you're never going to be able to say you showed up today. They're just going to, I've been here or I came before. It's like this, it is such a stunning dereliction of duty. And it is such a demonstration of what happens when you let ideology and people who, one single person with a bad ideology can open a border like that, right? One person who's supposed to tell the guards, do your job and repel the invasion, right? Can't do it. Now those numbers are overwhelming, but you don't get a buildup like that unless people think they're going to be successful. I mean, I think of something like that. And if that were to happen right now under Donald Trump, what would he do? I mean, for sure he'd say, stop it. But the question of what would he do, like to what extent do you go to stop something like that? That is a legitimate invasion. Go back in time 200 years. That's not migration. That's a moving army. Allah Akbar. Okay. That really is absolutely stunning. So I want to show you something though. It's easy to see it in Spain, right? And right now in 2026, because Elon Musk bought X, we were able to see those images. Prior to that, to find those images, you'd have to find them on Gab or some obscure BitChute channel. I mean, we're talking circulation and impact of nil. If you can't get it onto Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at the time, it doesn't hardly exist. You remember, they took Parler off the internet on January 8th or 9th, right? Because Parler had become a very popular social media app for conservatives in the MAGA movement. And there were a lot of people, including myself, who took videos on January 6th and uploaded them to Parler. That's evidence. They took it all. Anything that could have been exculpatory, anything showing a cop punching someone could not be in circulation. And they censored it. Stuff that made it onto Twitter got censored. It is absolutely stunning. Okay. So today in 2026, we are able to see what was happening in Spain. We could see that's now It's part of the record of this show. It's part of the record of Fox News. It's there. We had a similar thing happening back in between 2020 and 2025 when Trump was inaugurated. We had a very similar thing happening at our southern border. This is our southern border under Joe Biden. But they dug under it. They dug under the wall. That's our border. That's not the Spanish border. That's the American border. Now, this video was not able to circulate when it happened. This video got this account banned, right? So we didn't get to see this. You didn't get to see this out on the news at night. This video just continues on, okay? You've got other videos like this. This is Alejandro Mayorkas while he's testifying to Congress saying the border's closed.
That the challenges at the border are very complex and dynamic.
All right, well, I'm going to take from that if you can't answer yes, then the answer is no.
That is not true.
All right, so then you're saying all 9 are secure.
It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security. That the challenges at the border.
Yeah, the challenges at the border are a big deal. Guys, this was happening, right? This was happening. I don't know that there was a single day where 100,000 people crossed the border, right? But every day, thousands of people were crossing the borders in these long caravans like this every day. And every now and then one would make the news, and every now and then you'd see a clip of people riding on the top of trains or buses down in Mexico heading north, right? Anytime the news was, oh, there's a caravan coming, oh my gosh, you know. But this was happening constantly. According to current reporting, there's over 1 million migrants that have settled just along the southern border that are simply waiting for 2028. They simply believe as soon as President Trump's gone, that border will open wide up, and 1 million people are going to flood across the border. A lot of people that have been deported have tried to make their way back up, hoping that Donald Trump leaves office in 2028 and the border opens back up, right? This is a very real problem, like very real problem. And what's going to happen in Spain over the next couple months, Italy has indicated they're going to try to close the border to Spain and basically not allow free travel from Spain. I think I saw that Norway or Finland, one of the Nordic countries, has joined in that. So there's a good chance that this leads to a real reassessment about migration. This is, you know, when you think about migration in Britain, people are coming over on boats. They're coming over 20, 15 at a time. And it's every day, you know. I remember like today 60 migrants came. Today 100 migrants came. And it stacks up over years. You know, if you're letting in 100 a day over the course of a year, that's 36,000 people. Okay, that's a lot of people. If you and then you compound that by 10 years and you've got millions of people that have come over, you know, on a boat. But when it comes in hordes like that, you can't count it, right? We talk about the 20 million that came across the border under Joe Biden. That's kind of like, you know, we know that like 15 or 17 million came across and presented themselves at the port of entry. And the numbers used to be, it was like 1 to 10. And they think after they granted asylum to people, the numbers might have gone down to like 1 to 5, 1 to 2, or like a lot of people say for every one that presents themselves at a port of entry to clear asylum, there's 2 that just get across the border and just get away. They just get into the interior of the country. So the ones that come to the border, they're the ones that want all the benefits, right? The ones that just get away, they're the ones that are here for nefarious purposes, shouting, Allah Akbar. It's very scary. The government doesn't know to track you if you don't present yourself. So if you're up to no good, you don't present yourself. If you're, you know, just want money, you take an Obama phone, you get tracked. And that's actually kind of what rounded up a lot of these people, right? They had their phones. So it's astonishing to me. I wonder if this will affect the conversation around the Save America Act. I wonder, you know, if it'll affect the conversation around Trump getting his people in place. It's a real focal point moment, that chaos, that volume of people, that many people coming into a town, doubling the size of the town overnight, and then immediate chaos erupting. Immediate chaos. I mean, that is stunning. All along this journey for the last 5 years, since we started the podcast, 2020 happened, all along this journey, there have been people who've stood out front that have been truth tellers, right? And in the height of the storm, sometimes these people that are trying to tell the truth and they're trying to stand on that truth, There are these small little voices, and there's these little things that they have to do. And I remember Pete Hegseth called these people warriors of conscience. These are the people that were willing to stand firm on their principles, for example, not to get vaccinated, that got cycled out of the U.S. military, people who lost their jobs, people who had to give up things in order to avoid taking the vaccine and capitulating and complying. And there were some prominent examples. There was I think it was Henry Novak, tennis player, wouldn't get vaccinated, couldn't go to the Australian Open, and he's Australian, right? You had players like Kyrie Irving, for example, who set a huge example. Now, because of Anthony Fauci's dismal performance in Congress, pleading the fifth 100 and something times, his diary being made public, because of that information, you are starting to see people who were on the COVID train start to kind of turn it around. And Stephen A. Smith yesterday did something that I thought was really admirable. He gave credit where credit is due to a warrior of conscience in the basketball industry. This is Kyrie Irving. So for those of you who don't care, Kyrie Irving is extremely influential in the basketball, hip-hop kind of urban world. He's one of the best basketball players alive and very influential. So this is a big deal.
Who had the courage to say, bump that. And one of those people at the forefront was Kyrie Irving. I bring his name up because I had my issues with him from a leadership standpoint, never as a player, because he's sensational, but with him in terms of leadership. And I didn't look at it as being courageous.
So what Kyrie did was Kyrie refused to get the vaccine. And at the time, he played in New York and Brooklyn on the Brooklyn Nets. And so he did not play in all of their home games. Okay. So he sacrificed like $11 million in direct salary by not playing those home games. And then he sacrificed $100 million re-signing to not play in New York because he wouldn't get the vaccine. And because he wouldn't play at home, ticket sales were down, blah, 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 blah. On and on it goes, right? So Stephen A. Smith was like, you're not being a leader. You should lead your team. You should show by example. That was his perspective back then.
I looked at it as being selfish. And I watched Dr. Fauci on Capitol Hill yesterday. And the person I thought about most was Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving stood out in my mind because of the heat that he was taking. And how folks were piling on because that was just the latest transgression in their eyes that he was committing and subjecting the public to. He refused the vaccine. New York City's mandate made him ineligible for home games. And he linked his stance to people losing jobs over vaccine mandates. In my opinion, particularly hindsight-wise, it didn't make him stubborn or selfish. It made him brave for his willingness to stand up and say, nah, I'm not doing that. It's just a time for reflection and look at things differently.
One of the things I think about moving back with my own journey and this whole thing is this concept of the courage of your convictions, right? When you're convicted of something, you're guilty. You are it. And when you have conviction, right, you have settlement, you have closure, you have certainty. And I think about the people who had to have enough conviction to stand in the face of the COVID mandates, the mask mandates, the consequences that came depending on what your life situation was with not doing that. And you can never fault somebody for the decisions they made. Some of the choices that people were forced to make were just unbearable choices. You know, sometimes on the little side, it's like, well, I got vaccinated because I wanted to go on a cruise. Okay, well, you know, I guess your pleasure is worth it. Some people, they got vaccinated so that they could see family members that were, you know, preventing them from seeing them if they weren't vaccinated. Some people got vaccines not because they believed in the efficacy of a vaccine, but they got vaccines because they had to pay their mortgage and provide a house for their family. People were put in unconscionable positions to make a choice. Unconscionable positions. And all of this centered around primarily one man, right? One man, Anthony Fauci, who had the audacity to consistently say things like this to people who were resistant to getting a vaccine and resistant to complying with all the obscene, obsessive mandates.
But we don't want to be told what to do. Well, I understand that, but now is the time to do what you're told. And I think it really is something that we should be doing right now.
Oh, do what you're told. Something you should be doing right now. What about those side effects?
But we don't want to be told what to do.
What about those side effects?
I understand that.
What about those side effects? What about, all the second, third, fifth, eighth order consequences? Is it really a good idea to have my kids stay home from school? Right? So look back, time of reflection. Nobody can judge anybody else on the choices they had to make. And I go through the same thing with January 6th. There's a lot of people who took plea deals. Listen, you did what you had to do. Like, everybody has to, be able to sleep at night and be comfortable with what they're doing. But look at what we were up against, right? Look at what we were up against. The people that were willing to say, something doesn't smell right, and I'm willing to have conviction. I'm willing to die on this hill. One of the other things I learned in my January 6th journey was this concept that the story's not over, right? The best revenge is a life well lived. If you don't become the thing you hate, you get to write the end of the story. You get to decide how the outcome is. And if you're rooted on truth and you stand on truth, and truth is spoken, because if it dies in darkness, it dies in darkness. But if the truth is spoken, even sometimes by a few, and then it's echoed by more and echoed by more, eventually the truth will win, because it requires no defense. It only requires to be spoken. And when you have conviction and you have that conscious, that feeling in your gut that you've got to stand firm on some principle, it might make all the difference. Because the world is never going to make it easy. The world is never going to tell you the truth, because everybody has an agenda, especially when you start involving money. Listen to people who take money to tell you the news, the people who take money to try to be an authority figure and a certificate on the truth of any given narrative on any given day.
You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem.
Truth. Maybe they should be shamed, but the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
We can't trust the unvaccinated.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated?
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for health care.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
Really, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you.
We've got to shun folks. We've got to shun people into
to shun those that refuse to get vaccinated.
The unvaccinated people have put us in the position that we're in now, and it is not a good place. You got to start telling people, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this office or this place of business. If you don't get vaccinated, you can't come to work.
No, screw your freedom.
Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction.
The man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand
of the Almighty Creator. That is what having conviction means, right? Standing through that kind of nonsense, standing through the kind of stuff like that, to where the whole world is telling you you're crazy and you're causing me harm. And the reality was the exact opposite. It was the exact opposite. And Dr. Fauci and the sycophants that surrounded him made it personal. Yesterday, I played a clip where Dr. Fauci and Muriel Bowser and whatever public health person from DC literally went door to door in DC to try to get people to get vaccinated. Okay. And in that clip yesterday that I played, he said, the Republican states, we got to break those Republican governors. They don't like to do what they're told. Now's the time to do what you're told, right? Because I am the science. So here's another part of that PBS documentary where they followed these guys around, where they're talking to a black man who knows what time it is, okay? If you're in the black community and you study a little bit about American black history, you may or may not come across something called the Tuskegee experiments, okay? So this guy's a little suspicious.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot on a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And not
it's
like
much
the
more
common
serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many?
So 20 to 30,000 people died the year prior to this of the flu, but this year, virtually none. Where did the flu deaths go? Where did the flu deaths go? Did we get 100% vaccination and we just got the right virus on the flu shots we give to old people? Where did the flu deaths go? This is the most retarded thing.
People have died from COVID-19 in the United States. 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Because he can sniff it. Well, where'd the flu deaths go? That's your guys' number.
Yeah, definitely. Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on with
something else.
You're right. But I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
That guy was super wise. I think Jesus once says, like wiser man, no man has seen, or something like that. That's a wise man right there. He gets it. Right? The news media was obsessed with this. This is Chuck Todd, right? This guy's still on TV today. Chuck Todd, right? Still on TV today. People think he's really credible. He's over at MS now, okay? So this is back when they were MSNBC. And this is him talking to Americans at large, but also other broadcasters, other people who get on TV to speak authoritatively.
Please get vaccinated. If you know someone who's not vaccinated, find a way to convince them to get vaccinated. Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. People are needlessly dying because of your misinformation. Think about it. I don't know how some of you sleep at night who are doing this for a living on television.
So even to other news anchors doing this on television. Well, who was one of these people he was referring to? One of the people he was referring to that was spreading misinformation is someone who, largely on the topic of COVID, was totally vindicated. Who is that? Tucker Carlson. So Tucker Carlson, after this whole episode, recounts his experience with Fox News. I want to point this out, okay? Now, for me personally, since the election of 2020, when Fox News called it for Arizona, in this household, Fox News turned off, and it has never turned back on, okay? I have never turned back on Fox News. Do I play their clips? Sure. Did I watch it in prison? Yeah, had to, okay? But I do not watch Fox News, right? Even though, sure, 90% of the time they're on my ideological side of the aisle. It's because when it comes down to principle, they'll go along to get along.
You know what? I don't want to deal with those assholes on Fox News. There was really only one asshole on Fox News. In fact, Fox News, by the way, was totally pro-Fauci, as you may or may not recall. But those of us who worked there at the time remember very well the vax mandate at Fox News.
Yep.
And some of us lived far enough away. It was just like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going to your sexual harassment seminars, or your I'm racist because I'm white seminars, or your trans pronoun seminars. It's like, it's not optional, but some of us just ignored it. Like, how about make me? And they didn't. But if you're a producer at Fox, especially if you were a young woman at Fox and you wanted to maybe have children in the future, and so you didn't want to take an experimental gene therapy, you had no choice. And some of us said, well, wait a second. You can't make my staff, especially young women. I thought we were for women. Aren't we for women? but not actual women, just women in theory, meaning abortion, but actual women who might want to have babies and don't want to be gene therapied into infertility, those women, no, shut up and take it. Or you can't come in the building or whatever, fire you. And so my show said no. I said, no, I'll resign if you do that. And they just ultimately backed off. But Fox was not the worst offender, by the way. There are many worse. The U.S. military behaved shamefully, worse than any defeat in any battle, the way that they treated their own men. And Fox wasn't as bad as that, but they're pretty bad because they believe the science, because here you had this Ivy League educated scientist who never actually did any science, and they just kind of went with it because by that point, the whole society had been so feminized that every institution had exactly the same attitude, which is, well, the authorities say so. It's for your safety. The authorities say so. There's like no men left by that point. And the few men left are the ones who didn't want the vax. And this was a perfect opportunity to just cast them out, to destroy them. And that's exactly what they did.
That's exactly what they did. Ron Cleaver says, professional gaslighting. Yes, it was. Colonel Impaw, Karen, says, thank you for covering the vaccination topic. People need to remember the insanity during that time. On Vashon, Washington, they were moving towards quarantining the unvaccinated. Crazy. I moved to Florida. Yeah, I know. Vashon's real close to here. It was nuts, right? But Fox News, absolutely on board with the trust the science. Dr. Fauci knows the truth. 100% they were on board with that, right? But that's okay, because, Fox News, now that conservatives hate Dr. Fauci, they did a man on the street about Dr. Fauci in New York. This is great. This is really fun, right? Who knew New York? Do you think they would have been vaccine mandating everybody if they knew in a couple of years they'd be making fun of the vaccine mandates on the side of the street and realizing how wildly unpopular they were? I don't know.
Dr. Fauci, good guy or bad guy?
I don't know who that is.
I'd say bad guy.
Bad guy.
Very bad guy.
Good guy. Smart people are really nice to have.
I like him.
Why?
I don't know. I can't put a finger on it.
He's a hero.
What would we do without him?
We would be lost without him.
I look to him to lead my life.
Yes.
Snap out of it. Fauci was the brains behind all the shutdowns. Was that a good idea?
No. People went crazy.
I basically only had 1 year of high school. Totally needed.
You didn't want to see anybody anyway.
No.
It depends on what we learned from it. Well, what did you learn? To not talk so much.
They made it really hard to get toilet paper and
I have to go to the bathroom. Do you miss your mask?
So out of pocket. I do not miss my mask.
I have asthma and I couldn't breathe.
Messes up with the beard, man.
Do you know he kind of made up the mask guidance?
Seriously, wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that part.
Aww.
You're losing my sway with him.
Yeah, that's okay. Did you social distance?
I wasn't able to work.
Me and my friends didn't care about that at all.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Do you know that he made social distancing up?
Oh, wow.
I did not.
Fauci, come on, man.
Bad guy. Him.
Did you get vaxxed?
Absolutely not.
I got both. I got the booster too. They required that the second year.
Did you get COVID after the vax?
A million bajillion times.
So did it work?
It did not work.
How many times have you had COVID?
6 times.
Is the 7th one free?
Damn it. He made me laugh.
Now he got his hands on his diary, where he wrote down things and went on TV and said the opposite. He said on TV that COVID deaths were around 3%, and then he wrote in his diary they were around 0%.
That's ridiculous.
What the hell?
You got to put fear in people's heart in order to get them to move the way you want them to move.
Little white lie. It's called a little white lie.
A little white lie doesn't hurt anybody.
Well, yeah, in that case, yeah.
It just gave a bunch of students mental health problems because they kept them out of school.
Yeah, but in my mind, of course, it was needed because I didn't want to spread it.
He also wrote in his diary that he's more sexy than Tyra Banks.
She's drop dead gorgeous. Him, on the other hand, it's an old wrinkly man.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's fine.
What do you want to tell Fauci?
I love you, Dr. Fauci.
I want Dr. Fauci to know that he can go himself.
He seems like someone that just needed, what I say, a good friend. And his friend was his diary? It may have been.
Dear diary.
Joe Biden gave Dr. Fauci a pardon. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he did that? Perhaps he was guilty of crime.
That insinuates that Dr. Fauci is guilty as hell.
Clearly, Joe Biden saw something before the rest of us.
He was in Congress today and he pleaded the fifth over 100 times. Does an innocent person plead the fifth?
Probably not.
Of course he did. What else is he going to say? I lied?
Not over 100 times. Statistically, no.
They asked him what color was his tie.
He pleaded the fifth to what color was his tie?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything you say, 5.
Where did the coronavirus even come from?
Something like Wanghu, I think.
Wuhan.
Wuhan. Yeah, see, I was close.
Created in a lab from a monkey.
It was a bat.
Oh, is it the monkey and the bat that a boom chicka wow wow?
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay.
Do you know who I am?
I do not.
Here's Johnny.
Oh, that's pretty fun. You know, it's fun to look back at that, but you know, it's interesting. Some of the people they picked for that, you know, Dr. Fauci's great. Nobody, listen, you know, if you see the evidence, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The whole COVID thing was more of a narrative. That black guy on the porch in DC said it best. You guys are using fear to control the people. And notice how the black guy here said the same thing. You got to put fear in people's heart to get them to move. Yes, that's human nature. Be resistant to it. When someone's trying to motivate you with emotion and not with logic and reason, and clearly demonstrated, you know, if you push this domino over, here's what will happen. You should be very cautious. You should be very cautious of people who, you know, lead with emotion and lead with fear or as a motivator, or even who lead with things like free stuff as a motivator. Stephen A. Smith continued on talking about Fauci. This is really good, right? There's an awakening happening. You know, how long this stuff takes, more people should be talking. Don't forget to retweet the show and share it with your friends because we got to spread the word.
This was not a good day for Dr. Fauci. He looks very bad. Very bad. And yes, through the advice of his lawyers, and yes, your lawyers compel you to do something, and they probably wanted him to plead the fifth on many occasions before he finally relented and did it yesterday. But the bottom line is, this man held dominions over the lives of a nation, if not the world, with what he was imploring and mandating. Everybody was listening to him. As Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. pointed out on Hannity last night, he accused Fauci of misleading the country when it came to masks. Fauci was damn near encouraging us to wear 2 and 3 masks at a time. We damn near could breathe. How about the 6-foot social distancing? We can't ignore that. Where'd you get that from? He later admitted that it wasn't backed by science. He's just coming up with this stuff. The lockdowns, the natural immunities, the vaccine's ability to prevent infection and transmission. Fauci's pulmonary infarction following vaccination that he didn't reveal to the public, but he wrote about it in his diary. This is all shady shit. It is. And the Democrats have nothing to say. Wasn't it the Democrats that was enforcing stuff? People lost their jobs. Businesses went out of business. Folks' quality of life was severely compromised. And we had reached a point in our society where if you even questioned Fauci, as opposed to celebrate him, you were in trouble.
Yeah, you were in trouble. If you even question him, as opposed to celebrate him, you were in trouble. That's it, man. I mean, the censorship was bad. Censorship was bad. It's hard to remember unless you yourself were censored. And it's easy now to forget. It's easy now to forget how bad it was. Remember, Parler, millions of people had their entire social media accounts just evaporated overnight. Okay? Evaporated overnight. Donald Trump was removed from Twitter. Why? You know, we don't like his mean tweets. Unbelievable. If it were not for Elon Musk buying X, we would not have available a lot of the information we have now. and the truth wouldn't be roaring back like a lion, right? We're finding out things that just would have been unheard of. Government admitting guilt on things unheard of. So where did the diaries come from? RFK called into Glenn Beck's show yesterday, and he talked about the diary, a little bit about the content. This is worth taking a listen to. It's context. This Fauci thing, right, is a point in history, right? What I thought would happen, and actually the study that I was referencing came out in 2020, where I thought, oh, when people see this, the fever will break. We won't be afraid of COVID anymore. It'll be great. Never happened until now. Yesterday was that moment. Yesterday was the moment where everybody's going to come out and go, yeah, well, we didn't know. We trusted the science, but we shouldn't have. They're all going to do mea culpas. But it's the acceptance of the truth that's going to now have to be incorporated into the narrative. This is important. Robert Kennedy Jr. brought this about.
These diaries, and everybody is saying these are private diaries. Could you please lay this to rest? These are not private. They were, I don't know why he put them on, but they were put on government servers.
Yeah, well, you know, every American knows this who has a job. If you go into your office and the company that you work for gives you a laptop, and you do work on that laptop, it belongs to the company. And that is true. That is federal law. If you do something on a government server, it belongs to the government. So he was keeping a diary for the book that he intended to write about his life. And at the end of his term, just before he was leaving, he emailed the entire diary to himself. So for years and years of keeping this daily journal, he emailed it to himself so that he could write his book. And that's how we found it, through those emails.
But he knows that. I mean,
it's not a diary. It's not a diary in the sense, like you said, that a teenage girl keeps a diary that's private and has, a lock on it. This is a government computer, a government laptop on government time, keeping this account of what his official duties are, and then making private observations about them. The liberal media is now feigning an indignation that we released private diaries and violated his privacy, but it's a crazy assertion. And, what they're really doing is covering up this, like you pointed out, this vast media malpractice that took place during COVID, when they elevated this guy to a deified status, who had funded the weaponization of coronavirus, who then had given it to a Chinese military-run lab, to two scientists there, Xi Jinping and Ben Hu, who further weaponized it using NIH technology that they got from another NIH grantee, Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And they created SARS-CoV-2. And Ben Hu was seen as
It's no coincidence, by the way, that Tom Tillis is from North Carolina. And it's no coincidence also that that's where I think Fort Bliss is, which runs the Military Psychological Operations Department. No coincidence.
Second scientist on it is patient zero. So he was the first person to get sick from COVID-19. And then, if you look at the subway line that goes from the Wuhan lab, all the original cases were on that subway line. Oh, these scientists were infected. They were getting on the subway. People were getting infected, at each stop along the way. And that subway led right from the Wuhan lab to the airport. So people then spread it internationally.
So, the conspiracy is that COVID didn't exist and things like that. I tend to believe it did. I tend to think people have looked at this thing under a microscope, and whatever a virus is, they're looking at it, right? They know about the Huron cleavage, whatever it is, the cleft where the fusion of HIV was in there, which creates the immune issues, and it's what opens up the cells, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I tend to think it's all very real. And it tends, like even hearing Robert Kennedy Jr. recount that right there. It sounds like it was an accidental lab leak. That's what it sounds like. So this falls under the category of never let a good crisis go to waste. What can we do with this? And it was brewing all the way back in October, November of 2020 in Wuhan. So they had time to plan for its public narrative release centered around Trump's impeachment trial, which also started in October, November of 2020, right? The movement towards that started there. So I think that is, I think it all ties together. I said 2020, I meant 2019. So 2018. 2018 is when the virus broke out in Wuhan and during the military games and the planes. And that's about when Trump was going through impeachment in the House. And then it moved over to the Senate. And in February of 2019, February of 2020, gosh, I'm getting my years wrong. So 2019, I just said 2018. I meant 2019 in China, COVID-19. And then it popped up in, popped up during the impeachment on social media, which again, it started to go viral on Twitter. And I was watching it when I was on a cruise. I remember vividly, okay? It was before the podcast. And I was on a cruise watching this virus take place. Like, this is a big deal. This is going to change the world. It did change the world. But what was fascinating about that was that we had videos coming out of China. We never have videos coming out of China. We had a ton of them. That means China let them out. So again, it was definitely an operation, but it probably, in my opinion, at this moment, falls under the category of never let a good crisis go to waste. They took advantage of what they could do with COVID and ran with it, and they got a lot of mileage out of that sucker. Another big piece of news yesterday, the Board of Peace, which is dealing with Gaza, came to a huge announcement. Today, the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for a complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This is a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. This agreement is a critical step towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government that will work closely with the Board of Peace to help the Palestinian people. At the same time, Israel will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks. This is a major milestone in the implementation of the Trump 20-point plan. The agreement will be carried out in carefully structured phases. As disarmament is completed, Israeli forces will withdraw, and the International Stabilization Force will work with the new Palestinian force police force to take responsibility for Gaza being safe for its residents and its neighbors. Over 1 year ago, there was a violent, raging war, humanitarian crisis, and hostages kept in brutal captivity. We have made historic progress, and there's still much work to do. We want to thank the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, for their important efforts, and especially my outstanding team, whose tireless work has made historic breakthroughs possible. The threat that emerged from Gaza on October 7th will not be allowed to rebuild. Under this agreement, Gaza will finally be in the hands of the new Palestinian government that serves its people. Congratulations to all on this amazing development that everybody said could never be achieved. President Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Wow, great news. Great news there. So, we'll watch that continue to develop, but somebody put on X, finally Trump got Gaza out of the hands of Netanyahu. Or finally Trump disarmed Netanyahu by disarming Gaza. Anyways, funny trope. So that's interesting. Another big thing too, and again, this is significant. We've touched on this a couple times in the last week about the disparity in money between the RNC, the Republicans, and the Democrats. There's a huge gap, right? The Democrat National Convention versus the Republican National Convention has like $100 million gap. The DNC is in debt, whereas the RNC is up 100 million, 400 million, some ridiculous number. And then you've got the Republican Party, the GOP, and you've got the Democrat Party. They have separate campaign troughs. And the Democrat Party's got like 100 million, and the Republicans are approaching $1 billion. And Elon Musk just opened his checkbook. So Mark Halperin, right? Mark Halperin, who's a very noted commentator. I've talked quite a bit about him. Mark Halperin said this: with Elon Musk opening the checkbook, there's going to be a huge disparity in the midterms.
Elon Musk is opening his checkbook. We've talked about the $1 billion plus disparity in spending. Elon Musk is going to start spending apparently on get out the vote, not on ads, but get out the vote. Again, I predict that this disparity could be 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion could be the disparity between the Democrats at large and the Republicans at large in money for this midterm campaign. That is a huge number. We've never seen that. We've almost always, in my lifetime, seen Republicans out fundraised, right? They don't have as much money as the Democrats. And that's been the accusations. The Democrats can run an air campaign. They can drop ads on your head. They get all this free media. With the Democrats having no money, the only thing they're going to have is free media. They're going to have no answer to a lot of the shock ads that the Republicans can produce. No answer to it. So that's going to be really interesting. The other big news is the Clarity Act, right? Clarity Act, is it on the table, off the table, on the table, off the table? Is it a surveillance bill? Is it good? Is it bad? Who the freak knows? It's really good for number go up. It's really good for instituting American values into the future economic system, because really, we don't have like a go back to the gold standard option here. We either adopt a Chinese model of surveillance or we adopt an American model of surveillance. Given the choices, I'd still pick the American model. So the Clarity Act is still on the table, and John Thune has promised Cynthia Loomis it'll get a vote.
Are you still on track for a Senate vote before the August recess?
Yes, I am. We have one more week here in Washington, at least. Yes, there's a lot to do. We have multiple nominations we want to get through. There's talk of a continuing resolution vote. There's the Iran and Ukraine/Russia sanctions vote, and other things that are important on the agenda. But Senator Thune has kept a place for the Clarity Act on the agenda before the August recess for many, many weeks now. And I believe he does intend to go through with it. So we will be proceeding. And I can't tell you whether it's going to be tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday, but we will be moving forward.
Now, does that look like a full Senate procedure where you go through, all of the, cloture, motion to proceed, getting the 60-51 votes, and then passing this thing, or potentially passing this thing before you leave for August recess? Will you have to stay and potentially put recess on hiatus? How could something like that potentially play out? What would that look like?
Well, we have to do 3 votes: a motion to proceed, cloture, and then final passage. And then if there are amendment votes allowed, they will have to proceed in the interim before final passage. It would be hard to squeeze all that into 1 week that starts on a Monday, but not impossible.
Senator Loomis, would you say at this point the biggest obstacle is getting the Clarity Act to the floor on the Senate calendar, or is it still the fact that the bill doesn't yet have 60 votes?
The biggest obstacle is that the Democrats, in spite of having 11 months to work on this bill intensely, which we have done, still won't commit to voting for it. And that is the bigger challenge. They continue to push back. When we started working with them last Labor Day, the Clarity Act was about 300 pages. It's getting closer to 700 pages. Most of those new pages were added at the requests of Democrats. We've added so much to address DeFi, or illicit finance, that this is now a very pro-law enforcement bill. We added matters involving ethics that the president agreed to, that no president has ever agreed to. The manner in which President Trump is willing to place limits based on ethics on what the president can do, it is unprecedented. It is, my goodness, if the Democrats had done this for Nancy Pelosi when she was making tens of millions of dollars on stock over the years, it would have curtailed those kinds of aggressive stock trading based on insider information. They never did that.
Yeah, they never did that. Of course they didn't. So the Clarity Act has a chance. I'm 50-50 on it. To be completely honest with you, I'm 50-50 on it. I'm 50-50 on it. I don't have nefarious purpose for money. I don't plan on doing anything that's should be a problem. So it's like, oh, okay, whatever, I don't use my bank account illegally. But I have seen the power of regulation and control over industry like banking. I was debanked, right? And I don't know, maybe today I can bank. Maybe it's been removed. But I had years that I had to deal with that. So to me, it's like, well, maybe I don't want the government involved in this. Maybe we should leave it the Wild West and, the strong will survive. So I don't know. I'm 50-50. There is one other thing I want to show you before we wrap up for today. Now, this is a little bit of a close to home piece for me because, as you guys know, I spent a little bit over a decade in the septic industry, owning an excavation business. And I'll never forget one thing my father-in-law said to me one time. He said, well, one of the great things about what you do is it'll be a long time before they ever replace a heavy equipment operator. And I used to think, yeah, that's great. It's recession. It's AI. At the time, we weren't really talking about AI, but it's tech proof. It's intelligent. It's going to survive that. We'll be one of the last jobs to go. I might have been wrong. About that. This right here is let's see, what's the best way to share? This is probably fine. So this right here is a guy, he's sitting at a mobile command center here. He's got screens in front of him. And what he's doing is he's operating an excavator remotely. This excavator is 1,000 miles away, being operated through satellite control. And it utilizes all kinds of AI and stuff like that. And then he's got his video monitors. So this is really cool. It's got the same controls that you would have in a cab. Nice, clean, sterile environment. You can see everything he's doing. It's got AI assisting on depth grade and stuff like that. So here's what's cool about that. So let me read the caption here. $164,000 a year. That's what one company saves by letting one person run 4 excavators. So he sits in that chair and he's able to link between 4 excavators from a single chair. The machines sit at 4 separate rural gravel pits. I've been to these rural gravel pits, right? Each one busy for maybe 1 to 2 hours out of an 8-hour shift, right? I've been to these gravel pits. You show up, you're the only dump truck there. You're the only dump truck that's going to show up that hour. And they've got a lady in the scale house taking your weight. They've got an operator that's going to fill the truck. There's 2 people running the whole gravel pit. And that one guy that's filling, they're just sitting around playing grab ass most of the day because they got nothing to do. So this is, wow, what a solution. This is actually really impactful. 1 or 2 trucks a day, not enough to justify parking a full-time operator at any single site. One operator runs all 4 from a single bank of screens, hundreds of miles away from any of them. An AI layer watches all 4 feeds at once and tells them which pit needs attention first. The grade control display does its own terrain read, catching depth errors down to a couple centimeters as the bucket moves. 4 site-based operators, about $224,000 a year combined. 1 remote operator plus 4 AI-assisted consoles, roughly $60,000 a year in wages, $240,000 in equipment, across all 4 machines, cameras, wireless control units, and the AI layer itself. Under a year and a half, the hardware pays for itself in wages alone. So that is fascinating. So things are changing, folks. Things are changing. So I'm glad I do this. I'm glad I get to talk to you guys and entertain you guys every morning and make some news commentary, the peasant's perspective, news commentary for the common man. Thanks for joining us again today, and thanks for joining me this week as I ran solo without Ron. We're still trying to get him on here every day. We're still trying. We'll get him at one point. So anyways, thanks for joining us. Glad you made it. Don't forget to visit 1776live.us, leftbehindandwithout.org, and as always, politicalremodel.com and takebackyourcounty.com. And if you live in Washington, don't forget, big election next week. It's the primaries. Talk to you guys again